joining me today is Demi Michelle. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for your patience. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Tell me how you got started in music.
So I've loved music ever since I was really little. I remember when I was very young, my friends and I would just write songs, and I remember singing, in the house and all that. So I've always had a passion for music, but never knew then what it would turn into. When I was 10 years old, I started learning piano. In middle school, I joined choir. In high school, I took voice lessons, and in college, I learned guitar. And when I was in college, I double majored in music and creative writing. And then it was at that point when I saw my two worlds collide, because I love music and I love writing. And when you put those together, you get songwriting. And so when I was a junior in college, that's when I started to really explore the craft and found that it's something I love doing, and something that also helped me to process my emotions and things I was going through. And so once I wrote a couple of songs, I shared them with friends and family, and they encouraged me to start recording. And so I released my first single, Into Focus, in 2019, and it's been a great journey ever since.
Wow. And what are your musical influences?
So I feel like when I started, I was in the contemporary pop genre because that's what I grew up listening to. I love pop music. And so I feel like from the beginning, it was kind of like Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift's newer albums like 1989 and Reputation. Also Haley Steinfeld, Sabrina Carpenter, Julia Michaels. So pop artists when I started. But now I am going more pop country. And so I'm starting to be really influenced by artists like Kelsea Ballerini, Corey Pierce, Mira Morris, and the ones that kind of blend the genres of pop and country in ways. And so I think it's important because I'm still developing myself as a songwriter. So it's nice having my pop influences and my country influences, because I'm allowing myself to kind of take all of that into my own songwriting and also develop my own style. So being aware of who my influences are is like really helpful in doing that.
So do you prefer to write on guitar or piano, or do you have a preference?
So I feel like it's just easier to write on guitar, just because I often get really inspired at random times and I'm just like in my room or by my guitar. And so it's just much easier to grab a guitar and start playing around on it. But I definitely love to write on piano. I think it also depends on the song I'm trying to write, because if something's more like country driven, naturally it's going to feel more natural to write that on guitar. But when I want to write maybe like a pop song or something more piano driven, like a ballad or something like that, writing on piano is more natural for me. So I think it all depends on where I'm at the time, how I'm inspired, and the genre that I want to write.
Do you play live?
I do. Yeah, I tried to play live. I do a lot of live streams. I haven't done a lot of actual live shows yet because my first single came out right before COVID. And so I never really had the opportunity to do that. And things are finally starting to get back to normal. So hopefully I'll definitely be able to play more.
So tell us about the new music that you're putting out at the moment.
So I am releasing a lot of music this year. I just released a cover of Homecoming Queen by Kelsea Ballerini in January. And that song is like really special to me. That's a song that made me fall in love with country music. And I really wanted to do my own rendition, which is kind of weird in a way because I like to record my original music as a songwriter. So making the decision to record a cover was a big one. But it was nice and a great experience to come up with the arrangement. And I actually wrote a bridge to the song. So that's different in my version. There's no bridge in Kelsey's version. So I wrote a bridge in mine. And then there's a guitar solo my guitarist Luke did. The drums are amazing. So I love doing the whole arrangement. So that's the song that's out, and I love that one. In February, just yesterday, actually, I released my new single, Across the Pond, that I wrote as a thank you to the UK and everybody else across the pond over in Europe for all of their support over the past year and a half. They gave me a lot of my first interviews, airplay, reviews, everything. So they gave me a lot of confidence. And so I decided to write the song as a thank you to them. So that's really special. And then over the next couple of months, I'm releasing some more music. On March 17th, I'm releasing a song called Four Leaf Clover, which is more of an acoustic song. It's kind of like a pop folk crossover singer-songwriter, really different than anything I've ever done. And I'm kind of thinking of that as like the closing entry of my album, Dear Diary, that I released last year. because it's kind of in the same concept, range as the songs on the album. And also that was going to be a song on the album, but then just because it's called Four Leaf Clover, it felt like a spring song. So I decided to hold on to it and release it as a single. So that's coming. And then after that, I'm going to be releasing more country pop music because I'm currently working on an EP. And the goal is to have the lead single out in May. So lots of music. It's been crazy, but I love every minute of it.
That's great. You're very prolific. So do you record, do you have your own studio, or do you just record by yourself, or how do you do it?
So I have a studio here in Pittsburgh I go to. It's called the Vault Recording Studio. And my producer, Bob McCutcheon, is incredible. I love working with him. I think what's really important for me is like being able to be hands-on in the production process and the mixing and all of that, because these songs are really close to my heart. And so I usually have a very clear vision, but I also love to work with my producer and other musicians to, hear their suggestions and kind of get the song to the best place it can be. And so I love recording at the Vault. It's like my second home. So yeah, I record all my music there.
And what's the music scene like there in Pittsburgh?
It's a pretty nice music scene. I actually haven't really played here, like I said, yet, but we have a lot of fun things going on. Mostly during the summer, there's lots of shows downtown going on, and there's a lot of like bars and restaurants that local musicians can play at. So it's a nice little music scene. I'm hoping to start playing here though. So we'll see what happens.
And what's your release strategy for music? What's your kind of marketing approach?
So I think it's so important to not rush a release. And this is something that I kind of had to learn the hard way through my album, because I started recording my album in 2019. And because of COVID, it got pushed like a year and a half because it was supposed to be out in May 2020 and it didn't get released until October 2021. And honestly, I think it was kind of a mix of like, I was already working on new music that was more country driven. And I felt like my hands were tied because the album was kind of still in the process of being recorded and mixed. And at the same time, I was working on this new music that I really wanted to release. And so I feel like I rushed the album release a little bit, which is something I didn't do with my singles, because I always tried to like plan months in advance, get the artwork, start doing like all the pre-promo and all of that. Not that the album did bad, like it was definitely a great experience, but I think like moving forward, I saw how stressed I was. Like it performed well, but I was really stressed because I was like, I have to do all this stuff in the span of like 2 weeks, and I don't know if I can do this. Like I'm so stressed out. But now I'm like definitely being more mindful of releasing songs at the right time, and also like knowing what songs I want to release, because when I started songwriting, I just got so excited every single time I recorded a song that I would just like run to the studio and record it. But now I'm being more mindful of like really taking the time with my songs, doing as many rewrites as I have to before recording it, and then determining, is it going to be a single? Is it going to be a track on an EP or album? And then kind of like getting a calendar, I think is really important. Like I have my entire year planned out with when I'm releasing music and what songs and all of that. And so I think that's really important when you start to get into the marketing side of things, because a lot of blogs, podcasts, especially, really want submissions like in advance, especially podcasts. And so I think it's really important to know what you're releasing and when, because then you can start to network with the right people. I try to like build relationships prior to just like emailing like submissions for like press and radio and stuff. And so I think like, I know in May I'm releasing a country pop single that's the lead track off my upcoming EP. And so I'm already networking with people that I think I'd be a good fit on their show or on their blog. So I'm building those relationships now so that when May rolls around, I can start, even sending emails in April once I have my master. And so I think like the more strategic you are with planning out your releases, the better off you'll be, because if you wait until a song's out, then you kind of missed a big, part of the process, because you kind of want to build that momentum leading up to release and then on release day. And then you want to have some things following the release as well to kind of do that whole run with the press and everything. So definitely be strategic with the releases, because you'll get a lot more out of it than if you do everything last minute.
And where would you see most of your income coming from with music? Is it through streaming? Is it through live, your kind of live shows that you do online?
So yeah, I think like I don't get paid for the live streams because I usually do them on Instagram and Facebook. I played a handful of shows in Missouri. When I go there, that's where my sister lives, and I get a nice amount when I play there. The streams have picked up a little bit. I get monthly royalty checks for the streaming, which is nice. I sold merch for my album and CD, so I got some from that. So I feel like I'm still building up. I think the thing is like with the industry nowadays, like we don't have to get into the whole like Spotify stream thing, that's a big situation, but I think that back then it was so much easier to make money from streams, but or from your music in general with downloads. But now that streaming's taking over, that's kind of where the discovery happens, and that's where you kind of have to be. But then you get like a fraction of a cent per stream, so it takes a lot to kind of build up to that if you're not on editorial playlists and things like that. But radio helps as well. Like a lot of my songs are getting played on radio, so that adds up over time. So I think I mean, I don't really think people really notice how difficult it is to be an independent artist. But it's definitely a rocky road that we all have to walk. But I'm hoping to start making more for my music. But it's nice to start seeing some things, because when I started, especially in 2019, 2020, like I didn't get anything at all. And so finally starting to get airplay and getting more streams and doing some shows is helping a little bit. So yeah, the reality of the music industry.
So what's been kind of the highlight of your music career so far?
So I have some great ones. The main one is something that happened really recently. So I was just recently interviewed on Pittsburgh's top 40 radio station, 100.7 Star, back in January. And they interviewed me, and then they played one of my songs, Will I Ever? And that was crazy because, first of all, like it's hard enough to get on a commercial radio station. And to be invited on the morning show of my hometown station that I literally listen to all the time. I grew up listening to the morning show that I was on. And so it's really surreal. And I think this kind of goes back to like making connections and being persistent, because I sent them my music. Like ever since I started, I would just email them my music, not asking for anything. I would just say, hey, I'm releasing your single. Here's the press release. Here's the song if you want to listen. So I was just keeping them in the loop with what I was doing. And they just started a new series where they are interviewing local musicians monthly. And I just happened to send an email at the right time with a new release, which is Homecoming Queen. And then they were just planning this new series, and they invited me to be the first artist for that. And then they played Will I Ever? So that was nuts, being on my hometown station. So that's like a really special one. I think overall, like I love doing interviews. So like every single interview I've done over the past like year or so, they've all been highlights. I was also invited to be a featured artist with Heart of Indie Radio back in October. So that was special. But literally, like, I'm like super grateful for everything. And just like anytime I get to do anything in the music industry, connect with anybody, it's amazing. And one more kind of highlight I'll share is I met a songwriter. Her name's Andrea Stolpe. She's a platinum songwriter. And I met her virtually for a retreat, one of her retreats back in August of 2020. And so I've done a handful of her retreats and like online courses and things like that. And back in November, she had an in-person retreat in Nashville. And so I ended up going to Nashville, and that was my first time in Music City. And it was the best experience ever, finally getting to meet her in person, meet some of my co-writers that I've been writing with over Zoom for like a year, finally get to meet them in person. And so I think that whole aspect was amazing as well, getting to songwrite in person and do collaborations in person and learn from Andrea at the retreat. And also when I was there, I went to the CMA Awards, which was really cool. So lots of things have happened, especially in 2021 and earlier this year too, with being on my hometown station. So it's really exciting to finally see things happening, because when I released my first two songs, I didn't get anything at all. And so I felt like really discouraged. But once I started to educate myself more about the industry and make connections genuinely, then things started to kind of fall into place. So I've grown a lot, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, Demi. Wish you all the best with your new releases this year,
Thank
and
you.
we'll watch as you grow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.